There's something quietly powerful about a woman who chooses solitude, not because she has no one, but because she no longer needs everyone. She's not escaping the world. She's meeting herself in the silence. She's not lonely, she's aligned. The woman who spends time alone isn't afraid of the quiet. She's not terrified of what she'll hear in the stillness. She's curious. She's brave enough to sit with her own thoughts, to confront her pain without distraction, and to ask herself the hard questions that most people run from. That kind of woman doesn't just survive, she transforms. And what makes her truly dangerous is that her power doesn't come from external validation. It comes from the inside, from sitting in the dark and learning how to light her own fire, from grieving fully, healing deeply, and rising slowly, on her own terms. She knows how to set boundaries with grace, walk away without making a scene, and rebuild herself without seeking applause. She's not defined by relationships, titles, or approval. She's defined by resilience, self-respect, and quiet strength. The world can't shake her easily, because she's already been through storms alone and came out stronger. She's not trying to be liked, she's trying to be real, and that makes her unstoppable. So when a woman spends time alone, she isn't weak. She's preparing, she's rising, she's becoming, and that woman, she's the one you never see coming, but you'll never forget when she arrives. There is a quiet yet extraordinary power in a woman who no longer carries her past like a burden, but wears it like armor. She has cried the tears most people avoid. She has revisited the memories that once shattered her, not to relive the pain, but to reclaim her power. She no longer flinches at the mention of certain names, nor does she shrink at the thought of what used to be. Instead, she's transformed every scar into wisdom. Every broken promise became a lesson. Every betrayal became a mirror that showed her what she deserved, and what she would never tolerate again. She doesn't pretend her past didn't happen. She doesn't bury it or sugarcoat it. She has sat with it in the silence. She has let it burn, let it ache, let it teach, and in doing so, she disarmed it. What once haunted her now fuels her. What once defined her now humbles her. She doesn't tell her story to get sympathy. She shares it, if at all, to show strength, because she knows healing is not about forgetting. It's about remembering without reliving. It's about honoring the woman she was, while fiercely protecting the woman she's becoming. She no longer blames herself for things that were never her fault. She no longer tries to rewrite history to make others look better. She sees clearly now, and that clarity has gifted her something unshakable: freedom. The kind of freedom that can't be bought or borrowed. The kind of peace that comes from choosing yourself, over and over again. This woman doesn't need closure from people who once ran from accountability. She gave herself the closure they were too afraid to offer. And because of that, she walks lighter. She doesn't carry bitterness. She carries boundaries. She's no longer triggered by old wounds, because she's already healed them in private. Quietly, bravely, consistently, and now, when people look at her and wonder why she's so composed, so unwavering, so grounded, it's not because she's never been broken. It's because she learned how to rebuild herself from pieces she once thought were worthless. She found value in her own reflection again. She made peace with the woman in the mirror. And there is nothing more dangerous, more beautiful, or more powerful than that. There is something incredibly rare, and deeply unsettling to some about a woman who no longer seeks permission to exist. She doesn't wait for applause to know she's enough. She doesn't measure her value by how many people agree with her, follow her, or choose her. Her self-worth is not built on likes, attention, or approval. It's built on something much more solid: truth. She has spent enough time abandoned, overlooked, and misunderstood to know that validation from others is fleeting. And so, she learned to validate herself. This woman used to chase love in places that offered it conditionally. She used to twist herself to fit someone else's expectations, thinking if she was just more this, or less that, maybe then she would be worthy. But over time, she realized that bending herself to be accepted only left her broken and hollow, so she stopped. She started the hard work of unlearning all the lies she had been told. That she had to earn love, prove her value, or constantly explain her worth. Now, she no longer seeks to be understood by people who don't truly see her. She no longer sacrifices her voice to make others comfortable. She speaks with clarity, not for attention, but for alignment. She dresses, walks, and lives for herself. And when she looks in the mirror, she doesn't see flaws that need fixing. She sees a soul that kept showing up even when no one was watching. That's where her confidence comes from, not from praise, but from persistence. She doesn't need constant reminders that she's beautiful. She knows that real beauty is in her presence, her honesty, her resilience. She doesn't need someone to remind her of her worth on the days she feels low. She's already written that reminder in her heart, in her journal, in the way she picks herself up again and again. When someone compliments her, she smiles with grace, but she doesn't need it to feel complete. And when someone criticizes her, she doesn't crumble, because their voice doesn't speak louder than her own. She has become the voice she trusts the most, and that kind of self-assurance, that kind of emotional independence, it cannot be faked. It cannot be shaken. She is dangerous because she knows who she is without needing the world to confirm it. She is not chasing validation. She is walking in truth, and that truth has set her free. There's a sacred kind of strength in a woman who can say no without guilt, who can walk away without causing a scene, who can choose herself, not out of arrogance but out of necessity. She understands that her peace is not up for negotiation, and her energy is not for everyone. She's not cold, she's clear, and that clarity has become her protection. For a long time, she didn't know how to set boundaries. She was the one who stayed too long, gave too much, forgave too quickly. She confused people, pleasing with kindness. She thought love meant self-abandonment, but that version of her, exhausted, overlooked, resentful. That version broke down one day, and in the pieces she found something better, self-respect. Now, she doesn't explain her limits. She doesn't over-justify her decisions. She simply honors herself. If something drains her, she steps away. If someone disrespects her, she distances herself. If a situation doesn't serve her growth, she lets it go. And she does it with grace, not aggression, not manipulation, just quiet conviction. She knows that people who get upset when she sets a boundary were benefiting from her not having one. And she's no longer available for relationships built on guilt, obligation, or fear. Her boundaries are not walls. They are doors, doors that protect her time, her heart, and her mental clarity. She is not asking for permission to set them. She is declaring her right to have them. And yes, it still feels uncomfortable sometimes. Yes, people leave, but she no longer chases those who walk away. She no longer internalizes rejection as failure. She sees it as alignment. The right people won't be offended by her growth. They'll respect it. And the wrong ones, she's learned how to let them go without losing herself in the process. This woman doesn't raise her voice to be heard. Her calm no is louder than any desperate yes she once gave. And when she says, "I'm not available for that," it's not a negotiation. It's a final decision. She doesn't cut people off out of spite. She creates space because she values peace, and that peace, it's not just a luxury. It's her lifeline, because she knows when you protect your energy, you protect your purpose. And when you set boundaries without apologizing, you finally begin to live in your power. There's a rare kind of wisdom that only arrives in silence, and she has learned to seek it. While the world rushes to fill every quiet moment with noise, distractions, opinions, validations, she chooses stillness, not because she's hiding, but because she's listening. In her solitude, she hears what others miss. She hears her intuition whispering truths she once ignored. She hears the heartbeat of her own needs, desires, and boundaries. And over time, those whispers have become her compass. She doesn't fear being alone because she's discovered something sacred in it, clarity. When she's alone, she isn't trying to keep up with anyone's expectations. She's not wearing masks, she's not performing. She's simply herself, raw, real, and unfiltered, and in that space she sees who she truly is. Not who she's been told to be, not who she once pretended to be just to be loved or accepted, but who she is at the core. This clarity wasn't handed to her, it was earned. It came from nights spent crying without an audience. From mornings waking up in silence and choosing to keep going. From wrestling with thoughts that were uncomfortable, inconvenient, and necessary. And instead of numbing them, she faced them, again and again, until they softened into insight. She knows now that being alone doesn't mean being lost. It means coming home to yourself. It means creating space to heal, to reflect, to recalibrate. She no longer confuses constant company with connection. She no longer uses others to avoid her inner world. In fact, she values relationships that feel like her solitude, safe, calm, and nourishing. Anything else feels like noise. In her solitude, she makes decisions that align with her truth, not trends. She plans her future based on what feels right, not what looks impressive, and when the world tries to pressure her to move faster, speak louder, or fit in, she simply pauses, because she knows clarity lives in the pause, not the panic. She is dangerous not because she's alone, but because she has learned to think clearly, live intentionally, and act decisively without anyone's input. Her solitude isn't loneliness, it's leadership, it's self-trust, it's strength, and that kind of woman doesn't need the world to guide her. She becomes her own North Star. Letting go used to terrify her. It felt like failure, like loss, like giving up on something she had poured her whole heart into. She used to hold on long past the expiration date, because she believed love was about endurance, not alignment. She believed loyalty meant staying, even when it was breaking her. But now she knows better. Letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's strength wrapped in surrender. She has learned that not everyone is meant to stay, and not every chapter deserves to be carried into the next. Some connections are seasonal, some lessons are brief, and some people, no matter how deeply you love them, are not meant to go where she's going, and that's not bitterness. It's clarity. That's not anger, it's acceptance. She no longer clings to what doesn't feed her soul, just because it once felt like home. This woman has been through the emotional labor of trying to fix what was never hers to fix. She has tried to explain herself to people committed to misunderstanding her. She has begged for love that should have been freely given. And all of it, every unanswered call, every ignored boundary, every moment of self-doubt, taught her something priceless. She's allowed to walk away. Now, when something feels off, she doesn't wait for chaos to confirm her intuition. She listens early. She acts with grace. She chooses distance over drama. She doesn't need a grand betrayal to release someone. Quiet disrespect is enough. A pattern of indifference is enough. Her peace matters more than holding on for the sake of history or potential. She lets go not because she doesn't care, but because she cares about herself too. She realizes that holding on to what hurts doesn't make her loyal. It makes her unavailable to the healing that's waiting on the other side of release. And when she walks away, she doesn't slam doors. She closes them gently, silently, with love, but also with finality. She doesn't go back and reopen wounds that nearly cost her sanity. She knows, when you heal, you don't revisit what broke you just to prove you're strong enough to stay. You move on, and so she walks lighter now, not because life is easier, but because her grip on what doesn't belong is softer. She trusts the letting go. She trusts that what is meant for her will not require her to bleed for it. And because of that trust, she's dangerous, not in a destructive way, but in a deeply liberated one. There's a quiet kind of power in a woman who enjoys her own presence. She doesn't need to be surrounded by people to feel worthy. She doesn't fear empty rooms or silent Sundays. She's not waiting for someone to come and make her life full, because it already is. Her peace isn't dependent on who texts back, who shows up, or who stays. She has become her own home. For years, she may have felt like solitude was a punishment, like being alone meant being unlovable or forgotten. She used to fill her time with noise conversations that drained her, plans she didn't want to attend, relationships that kept her from sitting still. But eventually, something shifted. The noise became too loud. The company became too costly, and she realized that the most important connection she could ever make was with herself. Now, she takes herself out to dinner without flinching. She goes for walks with her thoughts, not her phone. She travels solo, not to escape, but to experience life on her own terms. She reads, she writes, she thinks, and in those quiet moments, she doesn't feel lonely. She feels grounded. She's not escaping anything. She's embracing everything she once ran from. She knows who she is when no one's watching. She knows how to sit with her emotions without rushing to fix or suppress them. She knows how to comfort herself, how to motivate herself, how to return to herself. And that level of self-intimacy is rare and intimidating, because a woman who isn't afraid of being alone is a woman you can't control with fear, silence, or distance. She doesn't tolerate relationships built on codependency. She doesn't engage in connections just to avoid being single. She doesn't beg for time, attention, or space in someone else's life, because she's already claimed her own. If someone wants to be in her world, they need to add value, not just fill space. Because she's not lonely, she's selective. And yes, it took time. It took unlearning the belief that love is only real when it's shared. It took healing the part of her that thought being alone was a flaw. Now she knows that solitude isn't a sign of emptiness. It's a sign of wholeness. It's the evidence that she has built a life she enjoys living, even when no one else is around. So when people wonder how she stays so calm, so clear, so self-assured, it's because she knows herself. She trusts herself. She enjoys herself. And that kind of woman is powerful, not because she's trying to be, but because she no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. She's no longer in the business of convincing anyone to stay, love, or choose her. That version of her, the one who overexplained, overgave, overcompensated, she's gone. She learned the hard way that chasing doesn't create connection, it creates exhaustion. So she stopped running after people, attention, or validation. Now she moves differently. She doesn't chase energy, she aligns with it. She doesn't beg for love, she embodies it. She doesn't pursue approval, she radiates self-worth. This shift didn't come overnight. It came after countless moments of feeling invisible, undervalued, and replaceable. After trying so hard to be enough for others that she forgot she was already enough for herself. She poured herself into people who only took. She waited for reciprocity that never arrived. Until one day she realized love doesn't require begging. Value doesn't need explanation. And if something is meant for her, she won't have to chase it. It will meet her in her truth. Now she focuses on becoming rather than pursuing, becoming grounded, becoming joyful, becoming whole. She knows that energy is magnetic. And when she's rooted in her worth, the right people find her. Not because she reached out, but because she rose up. She's no longer driven by fear of being forgotten. She's driven by love for herself. She doesn't play games. She doesn't try to be more palatable, more convenient, or more agreeable just to keep someone close. If someone sees her and chooses to stay, it's because they see her, not a version she created to be liked. And if they don't stay, she doesn't crumble, because her life is full with or without them. When she enters a room, she doesn't demand attention. She commands it by being fully present. She doesn't try to prove her worth through performance. Her energy speaks louder than her words. People notice her not because she's loud, but because she's real. She's no longer looking around for love, she's looking within. And from that place, she attracts what aligns. Friendships that nourish, relationships that respect, and opportunities that mirror her growth. She isn't moved by desperation. She's anchored in discernment. She understands now that the things you chase usually run. But the things that are truly yours, they arrive, they stay, they flow. And until then, she's not waiting. She's living, fully, boldly, and unapologetically. She used to react to everything. A harsh word could spiral her into days of self-doubt. A missed call, an unanswered text, a subtle shift in someone's tone, it would consume her. She felt everything deeply, but without boundaries, it made her vulnerable to chaos. Emotions ruled her life. They came in like storms, and she didn't know how to weather them. But that was before she learned to sit with herself, before she discovered that feeling deeply didn't have to mean losing control. Now she doesn't suppress her emotions. She respects them. She doesn't run from them. She investigates them. She has learned how to pause, how to breathe, how to name what she's feeling without letting it define her. And that pause, that moment between trigger and response, that's where her power lies. She's not emotionless. She's emotionally intelligent. She can feel hurt without becoming bitter. She can feel anger without becoming cruel. She can feel fear without becoming frozen. She holds space for her feelings, but she doesn't let them run her life. That kind of inner stability makes her unshakable. And to those who once relied on her being reactive, her calm now feels threatening, because she no longer gives people the satisfaction of controlling her through emotional chaos. This didn't come easy. It took years of inner work, therapy, journaling, breakdowns that broke her open. It took the courage to look at herself, not through the lens of blame, but through the lens of responsibility. She stopped blaming the world for how she felt and started taking ownership. She began to recognize her triggers, trace them back to their roots, and gently rewire how she responds. That's not weakness, that's emotional maturity. So now, when people project, provoke, or try to pull her into their storm, she doesn't get swept away. She observes, she stays rooted. She responds when necessary and walks away when it's not. Her peace is her priority, and she protects it with grace, not aggression. The same emotions that used to wreck her now inform her. They guide her, not govern her, and that makes her dangerous, because the world expects women to be ruled by emotion, to be easily manipulated by guilt, fear, or affection, but not her. She's a woman who feels deeply and thinks clearly, who cries when she needs to, but never loses her voice in the process, who loves fiercely, but never abandons herself for it. That kind of woman can't be played. She can't be pushed off center. She doesn't fall apart in storms. She becomes the calm within them. She is not dangerous because she's cold or unfeeling. She is dangerous because she has returned to herself. Because she no longer asks for permission to take up space. Because she's no longer available for people, patterns, or places that diminish her. The world can't intimidate her with loneliness anymore. She's already befriended it. People can't manipulate her with silence. She's made peace with quiet. And love, she no longer chases it, she embodies it. She's dangerous because she has stepped into her power without needing a spotlight. Because she's done the uncomfortable, sacred work of healing without applause. She's not seeking attention. She's seeking alignment. She's not looking to be chosen. She's choosing herself. And in that quiet, unwavering choice, she has become a woman who cannot be owned, tamed, or dimmed. You can't shame her into shrinking. You can't guilt her into staying. You can't flatter her into forgetting her worth. Because she knows exactly who she is. And she had to walk through fire to find out. She is dangerous because she has finally stopped running, not from pain, not from truth, not from herself. She stands alone, not because she's unloved, but because she loves herself enough to not settle for less. She's not proving anything. She's simply living in her truth. And that, in a world that profits off your self-doubt, is the most dangerous thing a woman can do.